The air in West Warwick, Rhode Island was cold that Thursday, February 20th, 2003. Inside the Station Nightclub, warmth was promised. The band Great White, veterans of 1980s rock, was set to play. For many, it was a night to recapture a piece of their youth. The club's lights cast a beckoning glow onto the asphalt of Coolus Road, drawing them in. Few noticed the subtle dangers lurking within the old building. The station was owned by two brothers, Michael and Jeffrey Durdarian. They had purchased the venue, a single-story wooden structure hoping to turn a profit. On this particular night, the main attraction was Jack Russell's Great White. Their tour manager, Daniel Beachell, was responsible for the show's production elements, including the pyrotechnics. The club itself was a familiar landmark to locals. It had seen various incarnations over the years, a roadhouse that had hosted countless bands and parties. The crowd was a mix of die-hard fans and casual concertgoers, mostly in their 30s and 40s. The low ceilings and dark interiors were typical of such establishments, designed to focus attention on the stage. As showtime approached, the anticipation inside the station grew. Daniel Beachell made his final preparations for the pyrotechnic display. A chain of seemingly small factors was converging, setting the stage for an unimaginable horror. The Station Nightclub was an unassuming building. It stood at 211 Cowsett Avenue, a low-slung, rambling wooden structure. Originally built in 1946 as a roadhouse, it had undergone several transformations. The Durdarian brothers acquired it in 2000. They aimed to make it a popular spot for live music, particularly rock bands. The interior was dark, with a stage at one end, a bar, and a dance floor. Its wooden construction would prove to be a critical factor in the tragedy that was to unfold. Michael and Jeffrey Durdarian were not seasoned nightclub owners. They faced the typical challenges of running such a business, booking acts, attracting patrons, and managing costs. The club's fire safety measures were minimal. There were fire extinguishers, and the exits were marked. However, the building lacked a sprinkler system, which was not required by the existing fire codes for a building of its age and size at that time. Great White's decision to play at the station was part of a nationwide club tour. The agreement for the February 20th performance was standard. The band would play their hits, and the club would provide the venue and local promotion. The layout of the station was a maze of interconnected spaces, a wooden box filled with people, unknowingly waiting for a spark. The day of the concert, Thursday, February 20th, 2003, dawned like any other late winter day in Rhode Island. The band, Great White, arrived in West Warwick. Daniel Beachell, their tour manager, was responsible for setting up the show, including the pyrotechnics. He had purchased three 15-second gerbs, designed to spray sparks upwards. These devices were consumer-grade fireworks, easily obtainable. Beachell had used them before on the tour. A critical element, unknown to most patrons, was the soundproofing material used within the station. Highly flammable polyurethane foam had been installed around the drummer's alcove on stage, and on parts of the walls and ceiling nearby. This type of foam was cheap and effective for sound absorption, but was also notoriously combustible. No permit for pyrotechnics had been obtained from the West Warwick Fire Department for the show. The town's fire marshal, Dennis LaRocque, had inspected the station multiple times in the preceding months. His most recent inspection, in November 2002, noted several minor violations, such as blocked exit doors, which were reportedly corrected. However, the flammable foam was not identified as a hazard. As evening approached, the club began to fill. The opening band, Trip, finished their set. The stage was set, not just for a rock concert, but for a confluence of errors and unfortunate circumstances. Section 4:11:07. Shortly after 11 p.m., the lights dimmed. The crowd roared as Great White took the stage. Jack Russell, energetic and engaging, greeted the audience. The band launched into their first song, Desert Moon. As the music swelled, Daniel Beachell, positioned at the side of the stage, ignited the pyrotechnics. At approximately 11:07 p.m., 3 fountains of sparks erupted, shooting 15 feet into the air. It was meant to be a dramatic opening. Instead, it was the ignition point of a nightmare. Sparks from the gerbs on either side of the stage immediately made contact with the polyurethane foam soundproofing that lined the walls and ceiling around the drummer's alcove. The foam ignited almost instantly. At first, some in the crowd thought it was part of the show. The flames were small, climbing the walls behind the band. Jack Russell, noticing the fire, reportedly said into the microphone, "Wow, that's not good." The band stopped playing within about 30 seconds. Fueled by the highly flammable foam, the flames spread with astonishing speed. Within a minute, the entire stage area was engulfed in fire and thick black smoke. Panic began to ripple through the crowd. The main entrance, the way most had come in, became a scene of unimaginable chaos. The joyous anticipation of a rock concert had turned into a desperate fight for survival in less than 2 minutes. Section 5. The Inferno's Kiss. The first calls to 911 came flooding in around 11:08 p.m. Outside the station, a scene of horror was unfolding. Survivors stumbled out coughing, covered in soot, some with severe burns. The night air filled with screams, sirens, and the crackling roar of the fire. The wooden building was quickly consumed. Flames shot high into the dark sky, visible for miles. The heat was intense, pushing back onlookers and early rescuers. Those who had escaped frantically searched for friends and loved ones. Firefighters from the West Warwick Fire Department arrived within 5 minutes of the first alarm. They were confronted by a building fully engulfed in flames. The fire was so intense that an immediate interior attack was impossible. The primary focus shifted to rescuing those who might still be alive near the exits, and preventing the fire from spreading to adjacent structures. Police officers struggled to control the chaotic scene, to clear access for emergency vehicles, and to deal with the distraught survivors. The sheer number of casualties quickly overwhelmed the initial response. Ambulances began arriving from across Rhode Island and nearby Massachusetts. By approximately 11:14 p.m., just 7 minutes after the fire started, the roof collapsed. The building became a raging inferno, a funeral pyre for those still trapped inside. The immediate aftermath was a blur of flashing lights, shouting voices, and the pervasive sense of shock. The inferno had kissed them, leaving a permanent, painful scar. Section 6. Counting the Lost. Once the blaze was controlled, a grim task began. Firefighters, exhausted, sifted through the station's smoldering ruins. The building was a blackened shell, filled with charred debris. The search for victims was slow and painstaking. Each discovery brought fresh sorrow. The number of fatalities exceeded initial fears. The site was declared a crime scene. A temporary morgue was established. Identifying victims was agonizing for families. Many required dental records or DNA for identification. Families waited in anguish for news. Governor Carcieri declared a state of emergency. The state was plunged into mourning. The final death toll reached 100. Over 200 were injured, many with life-altering burns. Each number represented a life cut short. The emotional toll on first responders was immense. Stories of heroism emerged, with concert-goers helping others. The community began counting their lost, marking February 20th, 2003, as a day of infamy. Section 7. Scars on the Land. The Station Nightclub Fire investigations were extensive, revealing negligence. Daniel Bichel, the tour manager, pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 15 years with 4 to serve. Club owner Michael Derderian received a similar sentence. The tragedy led to stricter fire safety codes nationwide. Sprinkler systems and pyrotechnics regulations were enforced. The Station Fire Memorial Park was dedicated in 2017. It honors the 100 victims and offers a place for reflection.